This video will be about the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is used to solve quadratic equations. The formula goes like this. It's negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I highly recommend you would include this in your notes that you use on your final exam. So when we are using the quadratic formula, we're solving problems that include quadratic terms. A quadratic term is a term that has the variable x or y or z, it doesn't really matter what the letter is, but it's raised to the second power. So when we are solving these quadratic problems, the very first step is to get this equal to 0. So we would like to move this negative 5 to the opposite side of the equal sign. To do this, we have to use opposite operations. So the opposite of minusing 5 is adding 5. Now the problem is, we can't actually combine that 5 with any of those numbers. X squared can't combine with a constant, and x can't combine with a constant because they're not like terms. They have to have the exact same letter to combine. So we're just going to rewrite it with the plus 5 at the end. So now that we have it set equal to 0, we can identify which numbers we're using to represent A, which number we're using to represent B, and which number we're using to represent C. So the number in front of the x squared term, that is used to represent A. The number in front of just plain old x is used to represent B. And the constant term before the equal sign is used to represent C. So everywhere I see a B, I'd end up replacing it with the number 4. It's positive, so I don't have to write the plus sign in. Everywhere I see the letter C, I'd replace it with the number 5. And everywhere I see A, I'd replace it with negative 3. So now writing this so it's not kind of mushed up like this, we'd have negative, positive 4, because negative from the formula, positive because b was positive, plus or minus the square root of b squared. So again, we're replacing b with 4, minus 4 times a was negative 3, times c was 5, all over 2 times a. So once we've got that plugged in, now we have to simplify it. When you have a negative outside a positive, that's really just a negative number. So this 4 just stays negative 4. And now we're going to simplify what's under this square root. We start by doing 4 squared. So 4 to the second power is 16. Then we have to do the negative 4 times the negative 3. Oh, I'm using the wrong symbol. Let me start that over. I didn't want to use the minus sign. I should have been using the plus minus to make it negative. So I have to hit 4 first, make it negative, times 3, also make that negative, times 5 equals 60. It's positive. So since it's behind another number, we do have to put plus 60. All over 2a, so 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Now combining what's under the square root, we get negative 4 plus or minus square root of 76 over negative 6. Now most of these problems are asking you to give the decimal answer and round it to the hundredths place. So when we do that, we actually are going to have to split this now. The plus minus symbol in the quadratic formula is solely because mathematicians were too lazy to write this out 2 times. There's really the first problem where it's plus square root 76 and there's really the second one of minus square root 76. So we have to plug both of these into our calculator now to get our decimal. So we have 4, which I have to make negative, plus, now on this particular calculator, I'm going to have to hit the 76 first, then the square root symbol. Every calculator may be a little bit different. So 76, and I want to do the square root of 76, which is right here. And then I'm going to hit equals to do that addition. Now I'm going to divide it by the negative 6. That gives me negative 0.786. It wants it rounded to the hundredths place, so that 8 will either stay an 8 or round up to a 9. Since the number next to it is bigger than 5, this will round up to a 9. So that's your first answer. Now we go plug it in with the minus. So we go back to our calculator. We have 4, which we have to make negative, minus 76 that we're square rooting. Then we have to hit equals first. Once we hit equals, that's really the top of our fraction now. Negative 12.71 divided by the negative 6. So I can hit divide by 6 and make that a negative, which gives me 2.119. Again, we're rounding at the hundredths place. That will either stay a 1 or round up to 2. Since the number next to it is bigger than 5, it rounds up to a 2. So another type of problem you can see in this particular section is a problem with no middle term. 4x squared minus 16 equals 0. So if we're going to use quadratic formula on a problem like this, we need something to stand in for that x term. So when that happens, we really want nothing to be there because we know there wasn't one in the first place, and mathematically to represent nothing we use a 0. So this time a would equal 4, b would equal 0, c would equal negative 16. So again, plugging into that quadratic formula, we have negative b is replaced by 0, plus or minus square root of b squared, again b is replaced by 0, minus 4 times a is also a 4, but a positive 4, times c, it's a negative 16, all over 2 times a again was positive 4. So here we have negative 0, this piece is just going to go away completely. Along with that piece, 0 squared is also just 0. So under the square root we have negative 4 times 16. That gives us 256 divided by 2 times 4, which is 8. So now we take the square root of 256, and that gives us 16. Again, the plus or minus really means two options. The first option is we have positive 16 over 8, or we have negative 16 over 8. So now dividing, 16 divided by 8 is positive 2, that's one of our answers, and negative 16 divided by 8 is negative 2. So that concludes our discussion on